In some of my previous presentations, we have had an introduction to the concept of dialogic education. The current presentation is aimed at discussing dialogic education in practice, or in what ways can we implement the concept of dialogic education in educational contexts. So as we have already discussed, dialogic education is basically an approach to education that places dialogue at the center of the educational process. And the emphasis of dialogic education is actually an open and inclusive communication, critical thinking, and active participation on the part of the teacher and the student in the process of education, so that the process of education is made more meaningful as a learning experience for students. The implementation of dialogic education actually means that there are certain strategies and practices that we need to put in place in order to bring in the concept of dialogic education into practice in educational contexts. So what are those practices that can help in the implementation of dialogic education in practice? The first one is that we need to adopt the policy of teaching as a facilitation for learning. So the aim of teaching is the philosophy of teaching actually changes from that of giving something to the students, and instead the role of the teacher becomes that of a facilitator in the process of learning. This generally happens through encouraging a questioning environment. For example, the Socratic dialogue is an example where the student and the teacher and the students can get involved in the process of dialogue or questioning. Next, the promotion of debates and discussion is another important strategy and practice that we can put into place in order to implement the concept of dialogic education. Another way in which dialogic education can be put into practice is to encourage students to get involved, and also to teachers to get involved in the process of critical reading, text analysis, and evaluation. So again, critical reading is important in terms of developing the critical analytical skills of the readers, and also adding to their knowledge and skills for better insights into issues. Text analysis is again analyzing the text, for example, the text that is included in the textbooks or the text for particular classes. So text analysis helps in a kind of dialogue between the reader and the authors. And evaluation is another way in which dialogic education could be put into practice. So evaluation of the contents, evaluation of the aims and objectives of the textbooks that are generally used in educational institutions. Another important way in which dialogic education could be put into practice in educational context is the use of a variety of pedagogical approaches rather than one or another method. For example, generally the predominant lecture method that is generally used, which is generally teacher-led, or which you can say is teacher-dominated, a top-down structure. So a variety of approaches to teaching could also help in the implementation of dialogic educational concept. Next, collaborative activities, projects that are conducted by students in collaboration with each other, in collaboration with the teacher, is something that helps in the practical implementation of the dialogic education. The another important thing is portfolio development or journaling, which actually helps in the process of actually implementing the concept of dialogic education into practice. So when the students are involved in the process of portfolio development, they are often involved in critical debate among each other, in critical debate with the teachers. Similarly, when students are writing diaries or journals regularly, again, this is something that helps in the process of reflection and dialogue. Then the students' evaluation of the teachers in terms of their classroom practices, in terms of the interaction with students, in terms of their roles as teachers, is something that also helps in the process of dialogic education. So through this dialogue, where the students evaluate the teachers in written form or in oral form, and then they share those evaluations with the teachers, and so the teachers can reflect on those, and this can lead to mutual understanding, and this can also lead to a self-reflection on the part of the teachers in terms of looking at their roles and in terms of improving their practices and their relationship with the students. So this also leads to democratization of the teaching learning process. Teachers' peer observation and feedback is another important way towards dialogic education. So in this practice, teachers observe each other's classes and their teachings and their interaction with students, and they also give feedback. Generally, this is positive feedback that they give on related to the strengths and possible challenges or weaknesses in the individual teaching styles of or teaching philosophies of teachers, and ultimately this leads to dialogue, discussion, and so this is also a very important practice in dialogic education. Then authentic and open assessment practices. So again, here assessments generally and evaluations come on from the teachers to the students. Authentic and open assessment practices where when the teachers assess the students' assignments and the students' works, they are open to challenge by the students. And also similarly, when the students evaluate teachers' performance, they are also open to debate. So when there is openness and when there is authenticity in the process of assessment practices, that can also lead to dialogue, and this is actually a practical implementation of the dialogic concept of education. And lastly, community engagement is extremely important, because community engagement helps, engagement and involvement actually helps in the process of dialogue going beyond the four walls of the schools or the four walls of the classroom into the community. And so there is this can lead to dialogue on the aims and objectives and the practices of education on a larger critical social level. So these are some important practices through which we can put the concept of dialogic education into practice.